Okay, so we're in week 8 of Healthy Habits in the Diabetes Prevention Program, and we are talking about SMART goals. The way that I describe SMART goals is this is our way of turning the invisible into the visible. And speaking of, here's another one. Okay. Um, so many times, what I have seen when working in nutrition counseling and health and wellness is that people start out with really great goals, but kind of vague goals. And so sometimes people say, oh, I want to feel better. I want to look better. I want to eat healthier. And I say, well, what exactly does that mean? We have to add more details to that to make sure that we get where we're going. If we say that we want to feel better, well, what does that mean? Does that mean more energy? Does that mean sleeping better? Does that mean we've lost weight and we're feeling more mobile? What does that mean? That can mean a lot of things. And so we have to better define our goals in order to make them successful long term. So I kind of use a silly example here. And David, I know that you don't know me very well yet, but in a few weeks, this will be a really funny joke.
Right.
So if I were to say, I'm going to quit my job and be a rocket scientist, most people would go, oh, okay, yeah, right. That's not going to happen. But if I gave you a very distinct outline of, you know what, I was really inspired by the all women team that went to space the other day, and I'm really fascinated by this subject. And I'm going to enroll in such and such school by the fall and finish my master's degree in engineering in 2027. And then I already know where I'm going to go for my doctorate and should be in that program by 2029. And then I'm going to apply for an internship with NASA. That might be a little bit more believable, right? You're
Right.
like, okay, you've got your 5-year plan. We have to do that with all goals, not just our
Right.
career goals, not just our education goals. Now, I have no intention on going into rocket science, um, but we're going to use the same theory here to break down what SMART goals actually are.
Right.
So SMART goals, the word SMART is really just an acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And we need all of those to set up a goal that is going to be successful long term. So we can say, well, I want to feel better. Well, how exactly are we going to do that if we have not defined what it means to feel better? We've got to get really specific. So we're going to start with the specific part of a SMART goal. How detailed can we be? And I would argue that we cannot be too specific because if we get to a point where it is maybe feels a little bit too specific, then it might just mean that we need a plan B in case that initial plan doesn't work. So what I mean by that is if we have gotten really detailed with an exercise goal and we say, I'm going to work out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for 20 minutes at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to do resistance bands. We've got our exercises specifically picked out. We can get that specific, right? There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with that. You all know though that with your jobs that's going to be very difficult, and so we can get it that specific. But then also we're going to have to add in a backup plan. What happens if we're driving at 9 a.m.? What happens if the original plan was to walk outside and it's pouring rain? So it's not that we've gotten too specific, it's that we actually need to get even more specific of what's the backup plan? How do we add even more details to that plan to make sure that we have accounted for some of the monkey wrenches that can be part of this?
Right.
So, so instead of saying, I want to feel better, well, we may look at this in terms of we want more energy. How can we better define that? But not just I want more energy. What are we going to do to get more energy? And that's where we start to define these goals long term. So the next part of SMART goals is measurable. How are we going to track this through quantitative data? Meaning we've got to put numbers to this. This is not just, I want to lose weight. This is how many pounds and how many pounds a week? Can we get even more specific? And how exactly are we going to do that? Is this dietary changes? Is this exercise changes? Some of that is the specific part of it, but the measurable is always going to be numbers based. And so it's not just, I want more energy. Well, can we put that on a scale of 1 to 10? We're at a 5 now. We want to be a 7. Whatever kind of numbers we can apply to this goal are going to help make sure that it is successful long term. So one of the challenges sometimes with goals is that we've got an idea in mind. We may even get specific with it, but then they're kind of subjective, meaning it's just kind of how we feel on any given day. And so if we are trying to track energy, let's just say, and even if we put it on that number scale of 1 to 10, well, maybe we wake up kind of tired one day and we've had a pretty good week overall, but this one day we just didn't sleep well and we're like, energy's not good today. We're maybe at a 3 and we started out at a 5. That's going to be very hard to track that long term. We're going to need more data, more numbers to it. And so if we're assessing what does energy look like if this is our goal, now of course this is kind of a difficult goal to set, but I'm using it for a reason here. We've got to consider, what are we using the energy for? If we have a very strenuous day, let's say that we're very physically active, we're going to use that energy, right? And so when are we assessing that energy level during the day? Is it when we first wake up, or is it when we're rolling into bed in the evening? Are we considering where our energy is at before or after breakfast? There are certainly some things that are going to change that. It's a very hard thing to track, right?
Right.
No, hopefully more so what we would be tracking here is things like hours of sleep, how much activity we're getting, which could be a lot of different numbers. How many steps are we getting? How many minutes? How many sets and reps? How many miles are we walking? Could be a lot of things. The amount of weight we're lifting. This also could be numbers related to nutrition. So David will circle back around to this here in a few weeks, but things like our sodium intake. There's some very specific numbers of what's on a package, what are we probably actually consuming, what's actually recommended. And so those are great numbers to be able to track, and we can get very specific with it. But if we say, well, my goal is to lower my sodium, okay, what does that mean exactly, right? Where are we at now? Where are we trying to go with this? How do we know if it's successful? That's really going to be the question at the end of the day. How do we know it's successful? And it's always going to be a numbers-based answer. So any numbers that we can include in this are going to be helpful.
Right.
So the next one is attainable. Can we achieve it within reason? Is it doable? You'll hear me say this in other classes. We are not trying to hit some finish line in health and wellness in a certain amount of time. There's no finish line. We've got a lifetime to improve our health, and a little bit at a time is really most beneficial. So we want to continuously be working on it. And so what happens sometimes is we get really motivated, which is a great thing, but motivation is kind of fickle. And so we come up with these really lofty goals. I'm going to go do a 5K, and I'm going to do this 6 weeks from now. And then that motivation kind of fizzles out when we realize, well, actually, this is kind of hard. Or if we have a day where we're tired or we just don't have energy. And so there's a lot of things we can take into account here. Most of the time, I would like to believe that if we're setting a goal, that it probably is something that's attainable, but we want to look at all the factors here. So things like, if I decide that I'm going to sign up for a 5K and do it this weekend, can I? Maybe. Is it a good idea? Probably not, right? So there's a little bit of a difference there, and we'll talk about that with the next one when we talk about, is it realistic? But really this is coming down to, can I do it? So we're going to want to consider time frame. We're going to want to consider any physical limitations or time restrictions. Maybe we don't have time to work out an hour a day. And if we have set that as a goal, and then we start looking at, okay, where am I going to fit in an hour of activity in a day? We might not be setting ourselves up for success. And then it's essentially taken the wind out of our sails when we are most motivated. So we don't want to do that either. So starting small, thinking of it in terms of bite-sized pieces, that is a great way to start to make sure that we set ourselves up for success long term. Now, the next part of that SMART acronym is going to sound very similar, and sometimes it is, but sometimes we are asking different questions. So the next one is it realistic? Is this plan realistic? And here's where the two differ just a little bit. So attainable is, can I do it? And usually that's a pretty straightforward yes or no. Is it realistic? This is where we get into some of the nuanced sort of things. Can I go do a 5K this weekend? Well, sure, I could. Is that realistic to do that? That depends on a whole bunch of circumstances, right? That I can't answer for you. For me, yeah, I might could. I'll probably regret it later, but I could. But let's just say that you've got a history of a knee injury, and that knee injury flares up, and going and running a 5K is not in your best interest. So maybe it's not realistic. Is it attainable? Is it doable? Yes. Is it realistic? No, not so much. Um, and this is again kind of a silly example because we probably wouldn't set this as a goal, but if we said that we wanted to eat smaller, more frequent meals to help with hunger and our metabolism, and as part of that plan, we say, I'm going to plan to eat every 2 hours on the dot. I'm going to get up, I'm going to have breakfast at 8, the snack at 10, lunch at 12, so on and so forth. Is it attainable? Can we do it? Yeah, we probably could. We could set an alarm. We could have the snacks ready. We could, is it doable? Yeah. A human body could do that, sure. Is it realistic? Based on what you know about your schedule and your route and all the curveballs that may come into play and, right? Maybe it's not so realistic. Maybe we do come up with a backup plan, a little bit of wiggle room as part of that plan to make sure that it actually is realistic. So sometimes attainable and realistic can sound similar, but there usually are going to be some differences in there. So realistic, we're taking into account things like time, energy, schedule, resources, even. Maybe we need to learn some things first to be able to be successful in whatever this goal is, and that's okay too. We want to take into account any potential barriers that are going to come up along the line. And sometimes we don't know what those are until we've already set the goal and we're working on it and we're like, oh, there's the barrier. We have found it. That's okay. Then we go back to the drawing board. But hopefully we're assessing some of that on the front end. Some of the things that I see with attainable and realistic, just to give you another example here, I would say a pretty common one. When we're talking about weight loss, I often encourage small bite-sized pieces. Let's focus on, say, 10 pounds at a time. And we can look at this over a couple of months and, set a realistic time frame there. Some months, 10 pounds may be perfectly fine over the course of 2 or 3 months. But what happens when we're going into maybe Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's? That may not be realistic at that time, right? We may want to set a goal that's more along the lines of, I want to maintain my weight loss during this. Exactly. Yes. Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is helping to set you up for success long term. So if it's the first of the year and we're starting out in January, is it realistic? Yeah, maybe. If it is October now and we're going to be talking about November and December, is it realistic? Totally depends on your experience with the holidays. For a lot of people, they might say no. So it's very much an individual goal setting task there.
Yes.
The last one, the T in SMART, is time bound. So we talked a little bit about the numbers piece of it with measurable, but there's also some numbers-based pieces that we can talk about with time bound. When are we going to make this happen? And we can really look at this in a number of different ways. So if we're talking about, let's say, an exercise goal, the time bound piece of it is how many minutes are we spending doing this activity? How many days a week? How long are we going to go before we reassess this goal? Or let's say maybe the goal is to get to that point of doing a 5K. How long are we giving ourselves to prepare for that, to get to the point of completing a 5K? And again, no right or wrong answers. You've got to come up with what is attainable and realistic for you. But we want to go ahead and set those numbers on the front end. When we have set those numbers, it gives us a very clear point that we want to pause and reassess. And we'll talk about this a bit over the next couple of weeks. There's going to be plenty of goals that we don't achieve, and that's perfectly okay. It's going to happen. Despite our best efforts and being specific and making goals that are measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound, there's going to be things that happen that we're not expecting, barriers that we're not expecting. And so the best thing that we can do is pause at that point when we have hit our milestone of when are we checking in on this goal, and we're either going to pivot and rethink this goal, maybe make some changes, adjust a little bit so that we can get some momentum going, or maybe we need a little bit more time. Maybe we were really gung-ho and we said we're going to do this 5K in 6 weeks, and we're like, you know what, I'm getting there, but also I don't think I'm quite ready. Give it a couple more weeks and see where we're at, and that's okay. But we make sure that we keep that time frame in mind that we have initially set as part of this goal, so that we know when to check in, right? We've got to have a check-in point to see, is it successful or is it not, so that we don't just forget about it. Okay, let's do a quick recap here. So SMART goals stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. We've got all our questions here. So for anybody that is checking back in, this is a good time to do a screenshot if you want all the questions all in one place. But let's talk about some examples where we put these to the test. Let's imagine a scenario where we are going to set an exercise goal. We're saying, okay, it's time to start exercising. We're not 100% sure what this is going to look like just yet. We just say, I want to start exercising. How do we take that goal and turn that into a SMART goal? What things might we add to this to get to that point?
Say again, what'd you say?
So if our original goal is I want to start exercising, what kind of things can we add to that to make it a SMART goal?
I want to do 100 push-ups a day.
Perfect. So we get something that's measurable. We've got 100 push-ups. We've already gotten specific in terms of, what activity that we are doing. We know what days we're doing it on. We're saying every day.
Yeah.
Do we feel like it is attainable? Is it realistic?
Now you might change it from every day because it might not be realistic. So you might go, I want to do it 3 times a week.
Sure. Yeah, maybe we need a rest day in between, and that's perfectly fine. We may need to even ramp up. I don't know about you. I can't do 100 push-ups, but that's
Oh
okay. That's
yeah.
why they're individual goals,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So maybe we start with 10. We're going to do 10 every day this week, or 10 every other day this week, and then we're going to build up to 20 or whatever that looks like, right? We can
Right.
map that out, and that's okay. But yeah, absolutely. So that's a great one. Is there anything else that we might add to that?
Um, or that's how you can adjust it. You can say, I want to do, I want to have 50. For me, I'll set 100. I want to do 100 every 3 days. But then once I break it down more, I want to say I want to have 50 push-ups done before noon,
There you go. Hmm.
and then 50 by the end of my day or whatever. You know what I mean? You can break it down like
Absolutely.
that too.
Yes, that's a great way to get more specific. That was going to be my next question is, are we doing
Oh yeah,
100 all at once? Are we breaking it up throughout the day? How are we going to fit those in realistically, right? So we're back to that realistic piece, working within the time constraints of the day. So absolutely, that's a great way to look at it.
yeah.
So, so yeah, so we break it down. We go through the acronym. Is it specific? Yes. It's measurable. It's attainable. It's realistic. It's time bound. If we had a goal that was, and we kind of did this anyway, but if we had a goal that was even a little bit more complicated, I would even recommend we go back through that acronym one more time, which is exactly what we did. Can we get even a little bit more specific as to the breakdown of how we're going to get in those 100 push-ups in a day's time, right? And so you did that with the, you know, half
Right.
by lunch, half through the end of the day. That's perfect. So in my example here, I was using walking. So I said, I'm going to start walking 3 times per week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday for 20 minutes each time. If we were to go back through that acronym one more time, get a little bit more specific, add more details to it, I might say something like, I'm going to start walking 3 times per week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at a brisk pace for 20 minutes in the evening. If the weather isn't ideal for walking, I'm going to use my resistance bands for 20 minutes instead, or follow along with a workout video. So we have added a pace in here. We have added roughly what time of day. And I know that's going to be a little bit more challenging for you all, but if we can narrow it down a little bit, that can be helpful, help hold us accountable. Um, We've got a backup plan if the weather isn't ideal. Now, with push-ups, we don't necessarily have to worry about this, but with some goals, we may have to consider weather, we may have to consider holidays, we may have to consider any number of things. And we want to make sure that we try to be as proactive with those as possible to set ourselves up for success. So if I were to pinpoint some of the things that help to make the most successful SMART goals, we use our acronym, right? We start with that. We build a true SMART goal and we revisit that acronym every so often. The next thing that we can do is write it down. Put it in a phone, write it in a notebook, wherever makes sense to you. But we want to write it down and we want to see it regularly. We don't want to tuck it in the notes folder of our phone, never to be seen again. We run across it by accident a couple months later and we're like, oh yeah, I was going to do that. We don't want to do that with it. We don't want to check it in a notebook that gets stuff somewhere. We need to be able to see it because we are usually writing down that goal and doing all of this when we're motivated, but we're not going to be motivated 24/7 for the next 7 weeks, right? Or whatever the time frame is. We're going to need that reminder.
Right.
And even more importantly, this sounds silly, but when we achieve this goal, we need to be able to check it off. There is this little reward cycle that happens in the brain when we check off something on a to-do list. That it sounds so little and silly, but it has a huge impact. When we do that little check, our brain releases dopamine, which is a reward hormone, and it's the hormone that goes, good job, do that again. That was great. And so we don't even realize that we're getting this little boost of energy and that little reward. But the checklist works exactly for that reason. So we want to write it down. We want it easily seen. We want it to be SMART, following that SMART acronym. We also may need to build in some accountability. Accountability can look like a lot of different things, and we will talk about this a little bit more in depth over the next couple of weeks. But accountability is going to be different for everybody, and it depends on what you specifically need. Some people really like a good challenge, and it may help if you're doing an exercise goal and you've got a buddy that you can tag in to help build the challenge of like, let's see how many push-ups we can do, right? And then it's a competition. And so we've got that accountability in that form. Sometimes we just need somebody to check in with us, to ask us how it's going every so often. Could look like a lot of different things. This is something that either you know about yourself or hopefully you're going to learn while you're in class. And it helps to know about yourself of where you get the most benefit from accountability, whether it's just a quick check-in. It helps to know if you're a tough love kind of person or just somebody to say, hey, how's it going? I will tell you, I'm always happy to serve any of those, whatever you feel like is most beneficial to you. I'm not going to beat anybody out in a push-ups competition, but I can certainly find you a platform that provides that competition if you need that part of it too, if that's what's most motivating to you. So accountability is a very important piece of it. And like I said, we'll talk about that more over the next couple of weeks, but it's important to start thinking about that now. If this goal is maybe not going so well, or if historically I am more successful with an accountability person, let's go ahead and set that up on the front end and make that part of our goal. I'm going to check in with somebody. I'm going to share my progress. I'm going to ask somebody to check in with me, whatever that looks like. The next part that can be very helpful is to reassess regularly. So I mentioned we want to set a time frame because there needs to be a point where we say, was this goal successful or was it not? And there's very few things in health and wellness that I would say are quite so black and white. It doesn't have to be that way with most things, but we want to know for sure whether we have achieved this or not. Because if we have achieved it, we need to be able to give ourselves that little check and get the dopamine boost that serves as part of the reward system. And if it's a no, that's okay. We're not going to beat ourselves up for it, but we want to go back and reassess what could we do differently with this goal. We'll talk about that more in the future, but I want to get it on everybody's radar early and often that we're not going to achieve every goal. It's not realistic to say that we're going to achieve every single one because there's always going to be this surprise monkey wrench that nobody is expecting. And I've heard all sorts of wild and crazy ones. Um, I've got somebody in another Wednesday group that I use as uh, the perfect example, but also the worst example. And he doesn't mind me using this for this example, but I've got a driver who was in the process of losing weight. He was doing everything right. He was exercising. He had his routine. He was eating well. He was prepping his meals. He was doing all the things that he had set goals to do and was doing it very well and was losing weight. And then he had a freak accident where he literally tripped going out his front door and he fell and he broke his arm in two places. And boom, just that fast, we're off the train. Freak accidents happen. Of course, I always hope it's never going to be that extreme, but barriers are going to come up, challenges are going to come up that we could have never predicted. We can do all the work on the front end as best as possible of, hey, let's plan for the holidays. Let's plan for, we get stuck in the middle of nowhere in Iowa and there's no good place to eat. Like we can plan for some of those things. We couldn't have planned for a broken arm, right? So those things are going to happen. And I don't say that to be a Debbie Downer about the situation, but we've got to plan mentally for there are going to be times when we don't achieve this goal. It does not give us an excuse to give up on our goals. It just means that we reassess, we pick back up, and we keep going. So again, we're going to talk about that more here over the next couple of weeks, but I'd like to say that early and often. We can do all the planning in the world, and sometimes things don't go to plan, even with all that planning. So being proactive is helpful, but then we don't give up even when it does not go as we hoped. The last one that we need to be part of a successful SMART goal is a reward system. We're going to get much more in depth with this. But just to start getting this in your thought process here for the next couple of weeks. We want to set up a reward as part of our goals that is the equivalent of the effort that we are going to put into this goal. And what I mean by that is if we say, I'm going to prepare over the next 6 weeks to do a 5K, but then we set a reward that is a big, big reward, like, and then I'm going on a cruise. If we have the ability to set big rewards like that for every single everything, we're actually, it sounds counterproductive, but we're actually going to take the motivation out of it and some of that intrinsic reward of being proud of ourselves, feeling more confident, that sort of thing. We want to have some of that intrinsic reward. We'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks. On the flip side of this, if we are aiming for something really big, like I'm going to lose 100 pounds and it's, it's going to take me the next 18 months, but I'm going to do it. And that's how we've set up this plan. And then our reward at the end of it is just like a pat on the back. That pat on the back may not get us through the really hard days as we are working towards the end of this goal, right? The reward has to match the effort. So there's a happy middle ground somewhere in between there, and only you will know what that is for you. What's going to get you through the hard days? What's going to be enough to keep you motivated when you're not feeling quite so motivated anymore? But also, we don't want to overdo it and take away the parts that are intrinsically rewarding, like feeling proud of yourself, feeling self-confident, that sort of thing. We're going to put some ideas to rewards. I think it's next week if I remember right. But I will give you one rule of thumb that we do not want to be a reward system. Any thoughts on what that might be?
Woo.
Food. Yep, food. Food is not a reward. It is not a reward or a punishment, to be fair. It's neither one. It's just fuel for your body. And so I don't know about you guys, but I know that for myself and probably a lot of people growing up, food is used as a reward for a lot of things. I've got a little boy who's in school, and every time I turn around, he's gotten a lollipop for something good he's done at school. He gets a pack of Skittles at the end of the day because his behavior was great. I mean, it's nonstop food rewards. So we learn very early on that foods are a reward system. The problem with that is when we become adults and we're having to watch our calories and those that food intake and specifically the nutrition from our food intake matters that much more, then we end up with all sorts of problems from that. So we do not want to use food as a reward, but we will talk about a whole bunch of other options in ways that indirectly food could technically still be a reward. What have you got there, Chad? Peanuts?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was. Yeah,
I
you
thought you
got
were
me
showing me a
looking at
label.
damn labels.
I thought you were showing me a label.
No,
You're
no,
funny.
I just got done driving 11 hours, so I was
Oh, that's a
grabbing a
long.
quick
Yeah.
snack.
Yeah, it's
But you got
time.
me checking labels to make sure it's an acceptable snack.
Well, that's a great snack. No, that's a great one. It's a good source of healthy fats and proteins, and yeah, it's a good one.
Now,
So
saturated fat's the bad fat, right?
it is. It's one we want
Okay,
to be mindful of. We don't have to get rid of all of
okay.
it, but in moderation. Yep.
But I know nuts are a good one anyway. But
Yeah.
you got me looking at everything now. Thank you.
That's a great thing. That's a great
It
thing.
is.
Yep. All right. So, um, all of these that I have touched on here, the accountability, the reassessing, the reward system, the importance of writing it down and tracking. We're going to talk about that more over the next couple of weeks and better define those. But as you are thinking about SMART goals this week and starting to get some specifics and making it measurable, making sure it's realistic and time bound, all the things as we go through that, be thinking about some of these other things that we can build into this as well. Okay, if we achieve this goal by this time that we have outlined here, here's the reward system and here's the accountability that we could build into it and things like that so that we make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success long term. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions you guys can think of so far?
No.
No. Okay. So with the SMART goals session, what I like to do is keep it pretty short and sweet, but what that does is it allows us a little bit of time for if there are any goals that anybody wants to talk through to get an idea of how do we build this into a SMART goal, or if we need to talk about like how to better define it, anything like that. Do you guys have any specific goals in mind that you're thinking through or maybe already working on? Any that you want to, and no pressure, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but if you want to share and you want to talk through it, I'm more than happy to do that.
I mean, everybody, I already told you earlier, like I want to lose like 50 pounds. I mean,
Mhm.
but everybody in the group probably want to lose some little weight, probably. But
Yeah, that's a very common one, absolutely.
um, yeah,
Yeah, so this is when we'll talk about it more when we get around to week one. So here in just a few weeks. But one of the things that I encourage people to think of is when we are aiming to lose weight, we want to create a calorie deficit, right? Which means we've got to eat less than what our body's burning to
okay,
be able to lose weight. And so we've got multiple ways that we can do that. We can do that through greatly reducing what we're eating. We can do that by increasing what we're burning, meaning more exercise, or it can be a combination of the two. And so there's no right or wrong answer here. But for most people, the easier answer is going to be a little bit of both so that we're not having to go to extremes in cutting back on what we're eating, but we're also not having to go to extremes with exercise. We find this happy middle ground. And so that would be one where um, this will probably make a bit more sense in week one. But I would see if we could define a little bit better, like what kind of weight are we wanting to lose in what time frame. From there, we can calculate, okay, what does that calorie deficit need to be? And is that realistic? And then we look at what part of that is coming from dietary changes and what part of that is coming from more exercise. Fair
okay,
enough?
yeah,
Yeah. So I'll give you an example, and this will be a little bit of repeat once we circle around to week one, but just so you don't have to wait that time frame. If we create a 500 calorie deficit every day for an entire week, that's going to add up to 3,500 calories, which is 1 pound. So that sounds like a lot of calories that we're cutting out. And it's a lot of work for 1 pound a week, but it's going to be a very consistent 1 pound a week, which is a good thing. We want it to be sustainable long term, not crash course through 15 pounds a week for the next few weeks. And then we've done something that's not sustainable, usually is what has happened. Um, So if we're trying to create a 500 calorie deficit each day, we can look at this in terms of 250 less calories and 250 extra calories burned from exercise, which is not a crazy amount in either direction.
right.
So Chad, if you'll do me a favor here, if you've got those peanuts handy, will you tell me what the serving size is and how many calories it is?
1 ounce.
Uh-huh.
Calories are 170.
Okay, so that's a little less than 2 servings of peanuts, and there's our 250 calories, just that quick. What have you got there, David?
I ate this earlier.
Uh-huh.
They're Blue Diamond almonds,
Yep, okay.
Oh
blueberry,
yeah.
blueberry, and so are these good?
Yeah, yeah, great option.
Almonds are good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They sure are. Good healthy fat.
230 calories.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this will be something that we'll talk more about in the nutrition classes. We kind of have to pick and choose where are we going to cut those 250 calories out from, because you guys both have great options here. Nuts are a very healthy snack. They've got a great source of healthy fat, which is good for heart and skin and and pretty much all your major organs, your brain, especially. But there's probably some snacks that we're having throughout the day that are not quite giving us those same health benefits, right? And so that's probably where we want to look first. And not to say that you guys are doing this, but like soft drinks is really great hidden source of calories. The like bite of this here, bite of that there sort of thing. Things like salad dressings, believe it or not, and coffee creamers, and just like these little additions that we kind of sneak in on ourselves and don't even realize it. So all that to say, 250 calories may sound like a lot, but you guys both have perfect examples of like just how easy it would be to reduce by 250 calories, though we don't necessarily want to reduce those. Those are healthy snacks. So on the flip side, if we look at the exercise, 250 calories worth of exercise sounds like a lot. It's really not if we're intentional about it. Meaning we've got to come up with a plan, just like what you talked about with the push-ups. If we're doing push-ups or if we're doing walking, if we come up with a plan that is sustainable, that we can continue to do long term, we're probably going to achieve that 250 calories pretty easily. So if we are looking at an overall weight loss goal, we probably want some SMART goals that are addressing both nutrition and exercise to make sure that we're checking both of those boxes just to make the weight loss itself easier. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good deal. All right. Chad has been working on weight loss too, and he's been doing pretty great with it.
76 pounds. I added it up today.
Wow.
76
You lost
pounds
76 pounds?
since December. Yes, sir.
What?
Kind of unintentional, part of it. I ain't gonna lie, Lindsay. Some of it was,
Oh, I
you
know.
know,
You've had some health stuff going on.
well,
Okay.
I've gotten, there's some times that I down on myself because I
Mhm.
don't see the, what I'm expecting to see. So
Mhm.
then I intentionally like starve myself for,
No, no, no,
you know,
no. We have
for,
talked about this.
I punish myself.
No. I
And
remember
then
we
I'm
talked
like,
about this. Food is
Yeah.
not a
we
reward
did,
and
we
it's not a
did.
punishment. Yep.
No, but that's why I say, I had that issue, but yeah, I had that major health issue, um, which actually a lot of people would look at it as a bad thing. I look at it as, my basically my kick in the pants to jumpstart,
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
I made the best of it. What happened, David, I went to Silver Dollar City in Branson and rode a roller coaster, ended up cracking two of my vertebrae in my neck. So I was down for about 10 weeks, not being able to do much of anything,
Mhm.
which honestly you would think, being down, you'd have more time to eat. You just
Right.
stuff your face.
Yeah.
But
But
I'm
you were in a
like the
lot of
opposite with
pain,
me.
and pain will
Yeah, with
affect
me, I
your
couldn't eat.
hunger. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't eat. So, but it's been
All right.
consistent. I went back and I looked throughout the weeks. I've been losing an average of anywhere from 5 to 7 a week.
Yeah.
Consistent now.
Yeah. Which
Just
is
from
still
calorie
pretty high,
deficit.
to be fair. It's still pretty high. But from the foods that you are eating on a regular basis, and from activity level, I mean, it sounds like it's still pretty reasonable at this point,
It's
but we don't
yeah,
necessarily want to
it's
continue at that pace, right?
no, no, no. I want to hit the 200-pound mark, and then I want to dial back to maybe 2 pound, a pound and a half a week,
Mm-hmm.
and then just kind of maintain from
Yeah.
there,
Yep.
just maintain at that level. Um,
Absolutely.
so I've been kind of, like you said, I've been pushing hard to get to that goal. But, there were times in the beginning there where I got frustrated and I was like, screw it, I'm just not going to eat for 3 days. I'm going to fast.
Yeah, we don't
That
want to
was
do
my
that.
justification. Oh, I'm fasting,
No, we definitely don't
Yeah.
want to do
but
that.
no.
Were you drinking water?
Oh yeah,
You drinking?
I drink 180 ounces a day.
Yeah.
My medication that I'm on gives me dry mouth, so I'm always drinking water.
Okay.
Yeah. Many times, just so it's on the record, many times when people take extreme methods like that, and it's not even necessarily just fasting. I have seen this with a lot of the weight loss medications, and I'm talking about like the old school ones like phentermine, not so much the GLP-1 medications. Um, I've seen this with people who have done like extremely low calorie for extended periods of time. What ends up happening is it creates metabolic disorders where we can't eat the amount of calories that ideally we should, and lose weight. Sometimes people are gaining at when they're eating the appropriate amount of calories because their body has worked so hard to adapt to that lower calorie intake. And so we don't want to set anybody up for any kind of metabolic disorders long term. And so when it comes to things like fasting, I know that sometimes there are religious reasons for doing that, and I'm not saying anything against those, but I would not encourage them for weight loss. I wouldn't encourage them as a punishment. Certainly, those small, frequent meals are going to be your best friend to support your metabolism, to support all your organs, like right, your brain needs food, your muscles need food, your heart needs food. They all need fuel on a regular basis. So,
And that's been the best thing for me is the meal prepping.
mhm,
Um, it keeps me consistent,
mhm,
you
good.
know, on it's kind of like programming my brain. My wife bought me these containers. Excuse me, I got dog hair in my throat.
No.
Ugh. Um, she bought me these like TV dinner containers that have portion,
Uh-huh.
compartments. And
Yeah.
those have been very helpful in keeping my consistency in my portion sizes.
Good. Good deal.
And they're convenient. When you drive
Mhm.
11 hours, 810 miles I did today. I was dog tired at the end when I stopped. I really didn't want to cook.
Yeah.
So I grabbed a TV dinner and warmed it up for 4 minutes and I was good.
Good. Yep. Pre-prepared,
So it's
pre-portioned.
very helpful.
Good.
So
Awesome. That's
I've
good to
learned a
hear.
lot. Like I said, you got me checking labels,
That's a good
but
thing.
it's a good thing. It is.
Yes, it's a
I
good thing.
actually enjoy it. We talked a little yesterday how sometimes it's frustrating, but
Mhm.
I actually enjoy it because I look at it and I'm like, man, I never realized how bad this stuff was.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
I never paid attention to it.
Yeah.
It tastes good.
Yep. I'll
But
be
then I'm
honest
like,
with
man,
you. I have worked in this field for over 10 years now, and there are still some times where I see a label and I'm like, well, gosh, I didn't expect it to be quite so bad.
right?
It's like, I know what I'm looking for. I look at these things all the time, and yet they'll still catch me off guard, even though, like, I look at labels all the time. We talk about them all the time, and they'll still
Right,
get
right.
they
Yeah,
just, yeah.
it's actually a good thing. I
Mhm.
have learned so much in this class in the
Good.
short time that I've been here. And I, I just got my blood work numbers from my doctor this afternoon,
Oh, good.
and everything is normal.
Yay. That's a wonderful
Nothing
thing.
is high, nothing is low. Everything is
Awesome.
right where it be. The main one that he was concerned about with my weight was my A1C, which is 5.4.
Beautiful. That's perfect.
Which is a perfect number. He said,
Yep.
man, what are you doing? So I told him, my diet restrictions and changes and this and that.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, whatever you're doing, tell the lady keep it up because it's working.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's working so well. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great
So
A1C number.
yeah, I
Congratulations.
was, I was expecting it because the last year it was like 7.6.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I cut out the soda. I cut
Yep.
out a lot of the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
If I do use sugar, I use stevia or monk fruit, real the better,
Right.
healthier stuff. And I moderate that, a quarter of a teaspoon in my coffee to give it a little bit of sweetness,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, instead of, 4 spoonfuls in my bowl of cereal every
Right.
morning,
Right.
and I know you say not to. I don't look at it as a reward because I don't eat cereal I eat oatmeal for breakfast every day, oatmeal and
Mhm.
peanut butter every day. So my oatmeal's naturally, I do the cold rolled steel oats, overnight oats.
Mhm.
So they're the healthiest that I can find. I enjoy it. It tastes good. But every now and then I used to sprinkle sugar on it to give it a little
Mhm.
more sweetness. Now instead
Right.
of doing sugar, I'll cut up a banana, or I'll
Yeah,
cut up some strawberries, or I'll grab a
great.
handful of uh, uh, like granola
Mhm.
crunch and throw
Yeah.
in there, or some kind of fruit. So I get the sweetness and I feel like I'm getting a treat, like a little reward,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's been interesting considering I used to eat about. My wife was looking through it. I'm just looking on the computer. She said I was averaging about 2,900 calories a day
Mhm.
before I started this program, and now I'm down to just under 1,730 a day.
Yeah. Okay.
And to see, the attainability that it's at first I was like, no, I can't do that.
It
That's
sounds
gonna hurt
extreme,
me.
right? It sounds
I'm gonna,
extreme.
yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm always gonna be hungry, and this. But
Mhm.
what people don't realize is after a certain amount of time of reduced calorie, your stomach shrinks to size.
Mhm. It sure does.
So where when
Right.
you try to eat a normal calorie like you did, your stomach will hurt. Your body
Mhm.
compensates and shrinks itself down. So then it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people in weight loss don't realize. They think that, man, that they just see that big number, I got to reduce
Mhm.
700 calories a day. And like you said, it's not hard to look at
My bad,
your
y'all.
foods. A serving size is a half a cup, and that's 300 calories.
Mhm.
It's not hard to remove that.
Yeah.
And then you got to look for the foods. Honestly, I looked at foods that I can do without. It ain't no big deal.
Mhm.
I never try to cut foods that I enjoy the most, that I receive the most, like proteins from. Like I'll cut low protein foods versus high protein foods.
Right.
Um, so again, you're teaching me all this. I had no idea. I knew a label was
Yeah.
there, but I had no idea what they meant. I
Yep.
was
Just
just like,
finding
oh
that
yeah, that's yeah.
balance, right? Once we're eating
Yeah.
the right combination of foods and we're
But
eating more
yeah,
nutrient dense foods, then we really
yeah.
can sustain at that lower calorie.
And then the stop smoking has helped.
Yes.
That has been because food that used to taste like no taste tastes good to me now, and I'm like,
Right.
wow, how did I not like that before?
Yep. It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
never liked tofu, but now tofu, I'm like, hey, this is actually pretty good.
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yeah. It'll just pick
But
up the flavor of what it's cooked in. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yep.
And but no, I'm enjoying the journey. I know, I have my setbacks, like you say, we all do.
It happens.
We go up and down, but
Hmm.
you just got to learn to roll with the punches and not let it destroy you.
Yes.
You're not going to achieve everything in life. If you think that, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Failure is not a bad thing. It's a time to reassess.
Hmm. That's
Hey,
exactly
what can
it.
I do differently?
Yep.
And like you said, I don't want to continue losing 7 pounds a week. That's not a healthy number. In the long term, for a
Right.
short term goal, I think it's okay. My doctor thinks it's okay. He's happy with it.
Hmm.
But the other big thing too, you knew I had that stroke, 4 years ago.
Yep.
My cholesterol numbers were astronomical. Um, I can't remember the one, but the bad one was barely measurable. It was that
Mm.
high off the charts.
Wow.
And he said everything is good enough that they're taking me off my Lipitor and a couple other meds that I was on. He said you don't need to
Awesome.
continue,
That's exciting.
which has
Wow. Happy for
again
you.
been my end game is to
Yep.
get off meds. I hate taking man-made stuff unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Um,
If we can do it through dietary
but so yeah, I'm
changes,
proud.
yeah,
I'm proud. I'm
you should
proud
be.
of and
Yeah.
and like I said, a lot of it came from the neck injury. It
Hmm.
it spurned me in because hey, I ain't got
Kind of a
nothing
jump
but time
start.
now.
Yeah. Kind of a jump
Yeah.
start. Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm happy. I'm happy with the
Well,
progress
good.
where I'm at today.
Well, that'll be right on time for next week. So next week we are talking about both heart and brain health, and we'll get a little bit more
Okay.
into those healthy fats that we were talking about. We'll talk about fiber a bit, just overall habits that help support our heart and our brain. And yeah, so right on
I got
time.
have you ever heard of a doctor? I guess my wife watches him,
Where's the
Dr.
girl?
Now.
I don't think so.
He's a weight loss doctor in Texas.
Mm-mm.
It's like Dr. Norwegian or Norwegian or something. He's a real funny doctor. But she ordered me a cookbook from him. And he does these like extreme weight loss people that are 500-600 pounds. Then they lose so much, he puts them on a diet, and then he'll do the bypass surgery for them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh
she
yeah,
ordered me
yeah,
one
I
of
know
his,
who you're talking about now.
yeah.
Yeah.
She ordered me one of his cookbooks. And I was just reading through that when I stopped today. And, seeing on TV, I know TV is glamorized, but to see the transformations that people went through, he's got diets in there set up if you want to lose 5 pounds a week, if you want to lose 10 pounds a week, if you want to lose 2 pounds a week. And to see it, I've never thought about diet. That was the hardest thing, was portion control. I just ate until
Mm-hmm.
I felt full,
Right.
you know. But now as you said, food is just fuel for my body,
Mm-hmm.
and my body tells me when it's full, you know. Um, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I can say that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that sounds like a great
I got a
resource.
quick question though.
Yes.
It was about that A1C. So 5 is a good number. I mean, what tells you that you got diabetes?
Yep. Great question. So when A1C is between 5.7 and 6.4, that's considered borderline. And then 6.4 or above is considered true diagnosed diabetes.
And they give you all this when you go get blood work, lab work, or
It depends.
Um,
So if you've had an abnormal glucose reading in the past, usually your doctor will go ahead and run an A1C test. Otherwise, they may just be looking at your glucose level. So ideally, we would want to get a fasting glucose, or like you
yeah,
haven't eaten in the last 6 hours or so. Um, and then some doctors, totally depends on the doctor, but a lot of them, if that one is abnormal, they'll go ahead and then run an A1C.
and you send me that. You send me something to test my glucose.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Absolutely. So that'll be a good one if you can get one first thing in the morning. That's going to give us a pretty good idea of are we seeing normal ranges or not. But it also may be
Yeah.
helpful to check a couple hours after you eat. Like, let's see just how high is it swinging after
yeah.
a typical meal.
I've
In
also
that.
learned too through the testing with that. Um,
Uh-huh.
Certain foods will really give you a high spike.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that you would normally think would give you a spike, but
Yeah.
you'll start to learn over time that you'll feel different when you have your glucose spikes or your glucose bottom outs. You'll notice different things that you'll attribute to it. I test mine 4 times a day. Um, and then sometimes more if I have a certain food that, I treat myself to a food, I'll test just to monitor to see, what it does.
Mm-hmm.
You can never overtest. Overtesting is not a thing, and it helps you to keep track of. And my meter, I love my meter that I have. Mine records to my Gmail account. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh, okay.
have yearly records of it, which
Uh,
helps me to go back and look. But no, glucose testing is a good thing. A lot of people,
Yeah.
you know, truckers are prone to diabetes because of our inactivity.
exactly.
Yep.
Mm.
I
Absolutely.
see you drive for Butler, hey?
And then yeah, yep, sure do.
Yeah, okay.
And in that pack that you sent me,
Mm-hmm.
it tells me it's gonna tell me about because I'm new to this stuff. I mean, my mom
It's
used to
okay.
do it, but I really don't know.
Right, right.
Yep. So it should come with the actual glucometer, which is going to give you the numbers.
Okay.
It'll have the test strips in there, but it also should have like a user guide sort of thing that comes with
Yeah,
Okay.
that
it has an
box.
instruction card.
Yep. But if
Okay.
you have any questions as you're getting started, do not hesitate to reach
Call
out.
any
I'll
of
talk you
us.
through
Yeah.
it. Yep. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah, same here. I'm always happy to offer what advice I've learned.
All right on. I'm David, by the way.
I'm Chad.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah. I actually drove for Butler years ago.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yep. Butler.
Good.
I was here for
Yep,
3
good.
years and then I left and came back. So I've been here almost a year again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had to leave for health reasons, but now I'm back and I work for a company out of Holland, out of Fargo, North Dakota
Michigan?
now.
Oh no, for
No,
okay,
yeah,
Dakota.
yeah, North Dakota, yeah. I live in
Okay.
Michigan, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm stopped right outside your city, Lindsay.
Are ya? I wasn't sure how far you
Yeah.
were going today.
Yeah, I'm literally 9 minutes from downtown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I stopped. I called a friend of mine, and that's who I meant to send the text to. And he's like, "Yeah, there's places to park." He said, "Park right in my driveway." I'm like, "Oh, bet."
Nice.
I'm like, "Hey, can't beat this."
Yeah,
Right.
I saw your text and I was like, well, gosh, I'm sure there are places, but I
Right?
don't know.
Yeah,
the
I
place
looked
one.
at. Yeah, I texted him and I was like, "Man, what the hell? You're not answering me, bro." And then I look and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even send you a text. I'm sorry."
It's easy to do when you're driving, I know.
Well, I have you, him, and a couple others all starred in the top of my contacts, so they
Mhm.
pop up right away. And I just assumed that I was hitting
Yeah.
his name. You were the last person to text me with the link for today, so
That's funny. I
but
have
he
done
was like,
that before too with some of you guys, or I'll click on the wrong
"Yep,
name and
yep."
it just happens. It
Hey,
happens.
have you seen my dog, Lindsay?
I sure have. Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Hold on,
Yeah,
that's
she's
that little
tail's going.
Dalmatian in it, ain't it?
Nah, she's a Shar-Pei boxer and pit bull.
Okay. Yeah, I seen a little bit of pit bull too.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought
She's
this
got
spot
them
was
in tap.
Dalmatian too though.
Yeah,
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 it kind of does look like
yeah.
it, doesn't it?
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
No.
Oh, but yeah, no, this group has you will get a lot of good information out of it, and there's no pressure in it, which is nice. Lindsay's always
Yeah.
had my back. I went through some rough patches earlier this year. I lost one of my best friends to suicide from the military, and I went through a dark patch, and Lindsay was there to walk me through it. She truly is the epitome of a great person that cares.
No. Oh, thank
You
you.
know, um, and don't ever feel discouraged. There's going to be days that you don't hit your goals or you don't hit. Reach out to one of us. We're always here. You know, um, and Lindsay's really good at getting back to you
for
too. I've
sure.
learned.
Yes. Yep. I will always get back to you.
But
Always.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. It's just
Yeah.
it's more so that I'm not really like super. It's more so like my diabetes runs through my family. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to do
yeah,
whatever I can do to not get there because I felt like I would get up sometimes and my heart would be racing, or
yeah,
I don't know, or you know what I'm saying, feeling like I'm not getting good circulation, just sitting too much, or
yep,
Mhm.
so and then I turned 40. So I turned 40,
yeah,
and my sister had already told me, hey, when you turn 40, your body just starts telling you, it starts going down. So I'm like,
yes, it does.
let me jump up on it before, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well,
Because they
that's
say you always you don't have a problem until you have a health problem.
right.
That's
Yep,
it.
exactly. And we have a better chance of having more of
And
an
then that's the
impact
only
when we're
problem.
proactive, right? Versus when you've already been
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed and then we're trying to reverse some of this damage
Yeah,
that has already happened. That's much harder. If we can catch it early and start some of the changes a little bit at a time, that's a much better way to go.
yeah. Instead of trying to do it all
Right.
at once, crash course. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
All
So
right, you
I'm
guys.
focused and thank you information. I'm gonna try to get a plan going and get a goal set and go from there.
Absolutely.
You know, don't be
Sounds
afraid to
good.
start small with something simple. You know,
Yep.
work your way up. You know,
Yep. It all
and
matters, but we can't do it all
Yep,
at one time.
yeah. If Lindsay, if
already.
you want to
Yep.
pass my number across to him,
Sure.
you can call anytime. Um,
I can do
Okay.
that.
yeah, I'm always here to encourage. You know, I check in with a couple of the other guys from other groups that I'm in. Sometimes it's just nice to have somebody
Yeah.
to chat with for a few minutes. You know.
Mhm.
Right. For
But
sure.
yeah.
All right, I'll grab it from her.
Yep.
All
I'm
right,
sending you
sounds
a
good.
Oh,
text
you'll
now,
send it.
David, so you'll have that.
Okay. All right. So next week.
Yep, next week we'll be back to Wednesday, as long as Zoom decides to cooperate with us. I've never seen that happen before, so I don't
Yeah, I
expect it to
haven't
come
either.
up again. It was so strange. I was
But
like, am I
I
you
losing
know
my
what was
wonder
mind?
funny though? Your
what
link
happened.
didn't work, you know, for Zoom,
Uh-huh.
but my other Zoom meeting worked at the same time.
Oh, maybe it was like a server, certain servers
I
were down
don't
or
know
something.
if
I don't
there was
know.
just something in their internal servers, but because when I clicked on yours, it
Interesting.
said link not available. But
Huh.
then I clicked on my other link with my doctor and it went right through.
Interesting. I
So
couldn't even get
it
the
must have.
website to open. I was gonna
Oh,
try
Yeah,
to
because
go
wow.
like
in
I
and
said, I seen on the nightly news that it was site wide, like Zoom
yep.
was out.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't
that's surprising
surprise
that
me.
you said yours worked for your doctor because it hit the news last night.
Yeah. Maybe it came
Yeah,
back
that
up
was.
later. I don't know when it actually came back on. I checked just a little bit after class and it still wasn't
Yeah.
working at that time. And so, but I mean, maybe it was a real short-lived issue. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, because
Just
I
happened
went
to be
on
during
about.
class.
Yeah, it was just weird. I've never seen that happen with Zoom.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. It caught me off guard. I was like, I should have a backup plan, but I don't.
Right?
I never needed a backup. Well, somebody later said
Right?
that I probably should have tried Google Meetup, which
Yeah,
I was
Google
like,
Meet.
Google
yeah,
Meet,
duh, I should have done that instead of Teams.
or
I
you
don't
could
need
have
Pretty
did it
to.
Teams.
Much
from the
everybody has a Google
messenger,
account, you know.
Yeah.
the Facebook Messenger, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that for a group, but that would have been a possibility. Yeah.
There's a few options.
Yeah. Now we know and probably will never need them, but
Right?
now,
Now
now
that
I'm
we're prepared,
prepared.
it'll never happen.
Yeah. That's all right. Better be prepared than not.
That's it. That's it.
Oh goodness. Well, I appreciate you guys working with me and being patient. It's just
Hey, no problem.
unexpected.
Okay.
We're a patient crowd. We do nothing but wait.
I know. Well, I appreciate
Man,
you.
hurry up and wait.
Yeah,
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 hurry
that's
up and
it.
wait.
Hurry up and wait. Yes.
That's
Yes.
our in our job description. Can you hurry
Yep.
up and wait? Yep, then you're hired.
Yep. That's it. That is it. Well, David, it was nice to have you in class. Welcome
Oh yeah.
aboard.
Yes, it was nice to meet you.
It's good to
Yep.
see you
Nice to
guys.
meet you.
I will plan to send out the recap sometime later this evening. I'll try to get it out today, since we're already
You
on
better.
a different day anyways. I know I'm gonna do my best. But
My
as
wife looks
always,
forward to those.
does she? Oh, I love that.
She
Well, you know what?
watches them all after.
Cedric said yesterday that he was about to go in for a shower. He said he was just gonna put me on speaker so that the whole truck stop could hear.
No, my wife actually looks forward to these. She
Oh,
watches them after the fact, you know, and
awesome.
because she just started on one of those GLP-1 or
Uh-huh.
whatever,
Yeah.
some Galitude,
Yeah.
I think it is,
Uh-huh.
and so she's been really drawing a lot of information from here. I mean, she's already had a good start on it, but
Mhm.
now that she understands the labels more, she goes
Yeah.
back and watches the videos, and she's been on it now for about a month, and she's lost 26 pounds
Wow.
between switching, you know, her diet and watching her intakes and all that. But she said, I've never understood the complexity of a label and what to look
Hmm.
for.
Yeah.
You know, she knows not to look for, you know, bad sugars, you know, and stuff like that. But
Right.
she said she looks forward to these classes. She just sent me a
Yeah.
text. Are you done with class yet?
Almost, almost. Gotta get it uploaded.
But
Oh
no,
goodness.
so you're
I'm glad to hear
helping,
that.
and that's again, you're helping people outside of the group too, you know. Um, You have a long reach. You have a long arm for reach out here.
Yeah.
And we are great. We are grateful to you. I'm grateful to you. You brought
Oh
me
yeah,
through a dark time. You know, you and Sean and Kevin had brought me through a hard time that I probably wouldn't have made it through.
No, we're
Um,
glad you're still here with us.
I am too. Oh, I'm glad to be here. You know, and I did tell you I got rid of all of the main
Mhm.
issues, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yep. It's a
Yeah,
good thing.
I don't even. Yeah, get rid of the temptation. You know.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It's a
your
smart
neck.
idea.
So
Hey, your neck looks fine for me. To me, you, you hear me?
what? What's that?
I say your neck looks fine to me.
I still have some issues. I can't
Uh,
turn. You know, if I
oh
want
really?
to look out the mirrors, I got to turn my body.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, I
He was
cracked
in
my
a brace for
C3
a
and
good while there.
yeah, I cracked my C3 and my C4 vertebrae just by riding a roller coaster,
Yeah, wow.
and they're healing, but the pain is about a 4 on a consistency, which I've learned to tolerate. But I'm very conscious on my moving. Like when I check mirrors, I turn my body instead of just my head.
You gotta go like
Mhm.
this.
Um,
Oh, okay. Damn.
yeah. I mean, it could be worse. I could be dead or I could be paralyzed. So, you know. And I've always been taught a little bit of pain lets you know you're still alive.
Right.
That's one way to look at it. It's better than the
'Cause
alternative,
some days
right?
I feel like a robot. You know, some days it's like I'm just going through the motions.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
especially being out here, like I'm going cross country. You know, I left Norfolk Naval Station and I'm headed to Los Angeles. You know, it's just like a monotony of just I-40 all the way across the country. It gets kind of
Mhm.
boring,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. Exactly.
And yeah,
You know,
one day at a
it's
time,
just
right?
like coming through that construction. Yep, that's
Mhm.
it. Well,
Yep.
I've got my wife calling, so I will talk
All
with you guys
right.
later.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, I
Have a
hope
good
you
one.
guys have a great evening and I'll look forward to seeing
All
you
right.
next Wednesday.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right.
All right. See you guys.